Go.
Okay, thank you, host Dan. And so I'm officially calling the Turnigan Community Council April 4th, 2024 virtual meeting via Zoom to order. So thank you again, everybody, for joining in. And I'm Kathy Gleason, president this year, and other elected and sitting board members are Karen Plotnikoff. She's our vice president. Our two slots for secretary and treasurer are currently open, but hopefully not for long. And then our two at-large board positions are John Isaacs and Lamar Cotton. Is Lamar with us? I don't see him. I don't know what his availability was going to be today. So I'm not sure about that.
Cassie, I think he's traveling, visiting a son who's dealing with a medical condition. He may try to call in, but I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Well, you guys are all probably very familiar with Zoom meetings. We kind of put it on our agenda as far as guidelines and etiquette, but unless somebody needs some specific information, I think we'll just bypass that agenda item. And so the next thing we need to do is approve the agenda, and heads up, I've got some things that I need to add to the agenda. So they will be amended hopefully, but if I can have a motion to approve the agenda, that'll get us started.
So moved.
Okay, thanks, John. And can I get a second? Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second
I
it.
second the motion. This is Chris Hobby.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Okay, and thanks, Jean, too. Okay, I've got amendments, so we'll probably just handle all three of these collectively, and then I'll open it up to see if anybody else has any. Kind of when we get to the TCC officer special elections, I'll provide a quarterly North Rim TCC bank report, just giving our balance. And then I also left out announcements. And so I'll go ahead and do that right after the TCC officer special elections line item. And then going down the last item under old and new business, well, we have Carrie Sumner, who is the principal of Romig Middle School, who wants to give a real brief update on the Trojan logo that's going to be painted on the east side of the building. So I've got those three things to add to the agenda. Does anybody else have any amendments that they would like to put forth?
Hello, Matt. Yeah.
I'm
Hold
not
on.
sure what
Let me-
Dan is up to.
Sorry,
So,
let me mute.
okay. So does anybody have any objection to those three amendments to add to the agenda?
Kathy,
Karen?
the link I'm clicking on the TCC meeting announcement email is taking me to an online notice about the hangar. So should I just, does anybody else have another way I should look at or am I clicking something wrong? Sorry.
I don't know. That shouldn't be the case at all. It was included on the email notices that FCC sent out, and it's also included on the agenda itself at the top of the agenda. And I just did it to get into this meeting, and I didn't have any trouble. I just clicked on the FCC email notice that I had requested go out. So I don't know, Karen. I don't know. Did anybody else have any problems?
I had a similar problem. Meeting agenda items, meeting is a hyperlink, and that took me to what Karen found. But I just went down to Turnigan CC April 4th, click here, and I got the agenda.
Okay, well, hopefully Dan is fielding any problems that people may be having if they know to contact Dan. Okay, we're gonna go back to, does anybody have any other amendments to the agenda? Okay, so we'll go back to the motion to approve the agenda. That would be now amended with 3 items added. So does anybody have any objection to approval of the agenda as amended? If not, then the amended agenda is approved. So I appreciate that. Okay, so the first thing we will do, so that, especially with the secretarial position, because then our nominee, but anybody, we can accept nominations from the floor as well, whoever gets elected, secretary, then that person will be officially taking minutes, so to speak, of this meeting. So we've had 2 slots open since the beginning of the year, the secretary position and the treasurer position, and feel very, very, very fortunate that for secretary, Chris Habich, who is a long time Turnagain resident and past active member and board member and past secretary, and he has put his name out to be nominated for secretary. So at this point, let's open it up to the floor. Does anybody else want to run for TCC secretary? And this would go through the calendar year 2024 through December 2024. Mark,
Kathy,
are you putting in your name?
No, I have a question, but thank you for your confidence. But I've got a question. What are the rules on who can vote?
Thank you for asking. If you live or own property in Turnagain, or you represent a nonprofit that's located in Turnagain, or a business that's located within our boundaries, and you're attending tonight's meeting, you get to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you clarifying that.
Don't
Okay,
renters-
well, let's close the
renters also get to vote.
nominations.
Excuse me, Kathy.
What,
Renters
Dan?
also get to vote as well.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Renters, people that rent property in this.
Yeah, I thought I said that, but yeah,
No.
homeowners or renters. Yes,
Mm.
thank you, Dan. Any Turnagain resident. So let's see. So all in favor of Chris Habich for the remainder of the year for 2024 for secretary, please raise your hand either like this or through the reactions button.
Hey,
Okay.
Kathy.
Hey,
Sorry
Sarah.
if you can hear me. Hi. Can Chris introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, and then I'll vote yes for him, but I just don't know who he is.
I'll give
Sure.
you 30 seconds, Chris.
30
Thank you,
seconds.
Sarah.
Okay.
Ted,
So I'm Chris Habicht, and I moved into this neighborhood in about 2005 into a house that needed a lot of renovation. And as soon as I moved in, I became active within the Turnagain Community Council because there was a lot of construction going on just below us in the earthquake zone. And as I got more involved, I became more interested in lots of other activities that the Community Council did and thought it was a great organization. And then my job got really crazy and I kind of dropped out for a while. And I retired a year ago and thought, well, it's time for me to start putting back and or giving back and helping out with the Community Council. And Kathy told me that the secretary position was open as well as the treasury position. And so I said, well, I've done the secretary before, I'll do it again. If so voted in. So that's why I'm running. I did want to mention that I now am retired and will be traveling quite a bit. And there will be times I won't be able to make the meeting, but I will be able to get to the video recordings and create minutes from those. So I commit to making minutes for every meeting, but I may or may not be able to attend. So I just want to make sure that if people recognize that before voting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That would be a factor when we have a discussion about whether we want to start meeting in person as well. So, but just FYI. So we'll go back to the voting. Everybody who is voting for Chris for TCC secretary, please raise your hand. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. John, are you voting? 14.
Yes, I did.
What? Okay, I'm gonna do it one more time. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I've got 14 yes. Anybody, everybody lower your hands, please. And anybody opposed? Kathleen, are you voting no or did you vote yes?
She went out of the room. I think she voted yes.
Okay, was that part of the 14? Is that me? Okay, I don't see any no's. And Kathleen, if you want to go ahead and lower your hand. So congratulations, Chris. You are now officially our secretary, and we really appreciate you stepping up.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Thanks. Appreciate it.
The other position, board position, officer is the treasurer position, and we have Kathleen McCoy, who has graciously accepted a nomination of herself to put her name forth for this. And that's awesome because with Chris and then Kathleen, assuming she's elected, we'll have a full board. And it's been a while since we've had a full board. So it's pretty exciting. So Kathleen, do you want to just speak very briefly, give your best pitch?
My best pitch. Let's see, I've lived in this neighborhood since 1982, and my career has been as a journalist and a public radio person. So it wasn't until I retired about a year ago that I had the time. I kind of got a little bit involved and helped out in a couple of candidate forums along the way, but I really wasn't a steady, community council person. But now I really feel that I've got the time, and I feel very committed to this level of community engagement. And I noticed when I was, looking at the emails that Kathy was serving and serving and serving, and I saw there were blanks, and I thought I could put my shoulder to this. I do not have, a big finance background, but I assume our finances are modest, and I can get help if I need it. But I essentially just wanted to step up and help in something that I believe in. So that's why I want to do it. So that's my pitch.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'll take any nominations from the floor. Does anybody else want to put their name in to run for Turnagain Community Council Treasurer? I don't see any no other nominations. So would everybody please raise your hand if you want to vote for Kathleen as our new treasurer? Same thing, she would serve throughout the end of the calendar year 2024. Okay, 10, 11, 12. I see 12, 13, 14. Okay, I see 14 yes. Now everybody lower your hands, please. And is there anybody opposed to Kathleen for the treasurer position? And Karen, I assume your hand is going to be lowered. There you go.
Apology.
I don't see any. So thank you so much for being our new treasurer, Kathleen. Thank you so much. And speaking of treasurer, we have not gotten the March statement, April statement that would cover the month of March. But as of the end of February 2024, we have don't get too excited. $220.05 in our checking account with Northern Bank and $1,617.16 in our savings account. And every month they charge us a maintenance fee of $5. So our numbers keeps, we don't do much with our funds, and they're just remnants of many, many moons ago when volunteers we drove around Turnagain and did curbside pickup recycling of cans and newspapers, excuse me, before the municipality offered any service like that. And we'd take them and they'd weigh them and this and that, and we got money. And so this is still the remnants of that effort. And husband Dan and I, and I'm not sure who else on this screen helped out with that at times.
I was
don't-
around, but I wasn't hauling.
Okay, yeah, you were around then, but it was an interesting way to get to know the neighborhood of Turnagain. Driving around twice a week, twice a month for quite a few years, and then scaled back to just aluminum cans when they weren't paying for newspapers anymore. So boy, that brings back memories. Okay, thank you so much. So next we will have, and thank you to Mark Wigan, who brought this up as a potential agenda item. We've got the 2024 Chugach Electric Board Association coming up, and maybe somebody who is more familiar with this than, oh, excuse me, I was going to do announcements first, but let's go ahead and do the Chugach board first. So we've got 2 positions open. Is that correct? And so we
Yes.
have 2 incumbents running, and then 2 other candidates who are running for those 2 positions. So in order of alphabetical order, what the board decided to do is give each of you candidates about a minute or so to introduce yourselves, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A, depending on, you know, I'll rely on other board members to kind of, we can collectively decide how long we want to go with this. But then, because we have a big agenda, and so we may have to limit the time somewhat, but I really appreciate the 4 of you being able to attend on such short notice. So we will open up with Sam Kaysen, who is an incumbent, if I'm correct, and he is running for re-election. So Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you to the Turnagain Community Council for having the wherewithal to continue meeting and to continue looking out for our neighborhood. I've lived in the Turnagain area since the early 90s. My brothers have both lived in the same neighborhood that I'm in since the mid 80s. I grew up down in Homer, went away to college and law school, and drug somewhat willing partner who had no idea what she was getting into back to Alaska. And my wife Jackie is the chair of the writing department out at UAA. I became interested in Chugach Electric through my brother, who was a lineman. They were looking for people who would serve on the bylaws committee back in the late 90s. That turned into being on the board of directors at Chugach. And that really opened my eyes to what fascinating industry utilities really are. I spent 10 years as an assistant attorney general, being the public advocate in front of the RCA for utility rate cases and other matters. And so that gave me a lot of forensic analysis kind of experience with utility operations. And so after that position, I gravitated back to the Chugach board, which I thought it was better to be proactive in new policy and the direction that the utility would go, rather than trying to examine how it got there and try and fix what was in the past.
Okay,
So
I
I'm
think I'll cut you off there, Sam, because that's a
that's
little.
great. Sorry,
So that's
I
okay.
chatty Cathy.
And then I will ask the body, should we hear all 4 introductions and then open up to questions, or would you rather do it candidate by candidate? Any suggestions?
Take
This
them
is
as they
Pat.
come.
Let's hear all of them first and then open it up for candidates or for
Okay.
questions.
I like that idea. Thank you, Pat. Okay, so our next candidate is Dan Rogers, and he's not an incumbent, but he's running for the seat. So Dan, if you are here, let's see. Are you here? I don't see him. Am I missing Dan?
I don't see him either.
Did indicate that he was able to attend, but we'll see if he jumps in pretty soon. Okay, so next we'll go to Todd Lindley. And Todd, if you want to give a brief introduction, and you're also running, I assume, for the first time.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, if you go ahead and say a few words.
Sure. Thanks again for the invite to have me come and speak to the community council. I live in the Tudor UMID area here in Anchorage, so I'm trying to remember the community council name. It escaped me at the moment, but nonetheless, my name is Todd Lindley. I've been a resident here in Alaska since 2015. I came up to help start up the Point Thompson project with ExxonMobil. My background's in mechanical engineering. I've worked all over the United States, onshore and offshore, doing oil and gas, and then had a short assignment overseas in Russia. Had various technical and supervisory positions, both independent contributor and management. And I'm looking to run for the Chugach board. There's a lot of varied opinions out there when it comes to how we incorporate the renewables into the portfolio, how we look at the natural gas situation, and how we look at the future. And I think I could bring a fresh perspective to that conversation and maybe ask some questions that haven't been asked or talked through. I'd say that's probably the best about me at the moment. Currently employed with Alaska Pipeline, so that's my day job outside of running for the Chugach board.
Okay, thanks so much, Todd.
You bet.
So now we will have Mark Wiggin, who is an incumbent running for re-election. If you can give us a brief introduction, Mark.
I would be happy to. It's good to be back at the TCC meetings. I see lots of familiar names, not necessarily faces. I was TCC president from, I don't know, for 3 years back in 2008, 9, 10 or something.
Oh, Mark, it was longer than that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Anyway, I've lived.
Okay. I've lived in the neighborhood since 2001. After finishing my TCC president, I went to MLMP as the MLMP Advisory Commission for the Municipal Light and Power, then an MLMP board, and have done things along the way. But I've been a Chugach Electric director for the last 3.5 years. I think what I want to do most is ask everybody here to get involved and to vote, and ask their friends and your neighbors to get involved and vote. We have, I think, 99,000 or 100,000 members. Last year we had the greatest participation ever, and I think it was 13,000 people voted. I can tell you how important it is. That substation out at Earthquake Park, when I was TCC president and Kathy was vice president and Chugach was putting it in, we had a very good time getting involved with the gentleman who used to work for Chugach, the external affairs, Phil Steyer. And we influenced Phil and Chugach in the landscaping and the design features. So we, as the board, love to have people show up and be heard as members. And you can be heard very well by voting. And then come to the annual meeting on May 17th. It's going to be kind of fun. There's bucket rides up in the bucket trucks and all that. Either way, get involved and, vote for me, please.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And
Sure.
yeah, so if you drive like out to the Point Warrens off and you see trees around that chain link fence, Mark and I did that, and it took a long time for them to grow, but they look pretty good.
Kathy,
It
Dan,
took a while.
Dan
It
is
took a
here.
while.
I'm sorry, Dan, what did you say?
Dan is here, the fourth
Oh.
candidate.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Dan Rogers. We're just doing introductions. So if you would be our last candidate to provide introductions, just about a minute or so, and then we'll open it up to a few questions.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kathy. Well,
Okay,
like
thank
Mark,
you so
and
much.
here's something Mark and I can agree on. I'm sitting in my house on Atwood Drive down here in Turnagain Community Council. So I grew up in Alaska. My folks homesteaded in South Anchorage, Golden View, Rabbit Creek area. I grew up on that homestead, went through Hanshu service, University of Alaska Fairbanks, went to work for Chugach as a operations engineer right out of college. Worked for Chugach for 9 years. There was a short break in there while I was chasing a PhD down at Washington State. And then I came back and founded a company called Electric Power Systems, Electric Power Constructors, that built power plants and substations and wind farms and batteries and a little bit of solar all over the state. So I'm the guy that's actually done all this stuff. I mean, we had 250 Alaskan employees at the peak. I sold out my share of EPS 5 years ago now, so I'm clear of any conflicts. And my concern on this, that's who I am. The reason I'm running for the board is when I got to Chugach, our G&T related power outages were 6 hours per consumer per year. We did a project, myself, the guy who was my subsequent partner in EPS, and a few IBW techs did a project to replace a bunch of protective relays all over the system. And 3 years later, we brought our outage rate down to 3 minutes, G&T related outage to 3 minutes per consumer, 6 minutes per consumer per year from 6 hours. I'm really concerned with the way we're going, especially on the power supply and generation side, that our outages are going to start going up again. And we just about saw it this year. We were very close and that cold weather snap to losing the system. And I'm a technical guy. I'm not much of a politician. I'm an engineer. I'm a electrical administrator contractor, and I'm concerned. And I don't like cold and dark. I went through that as a kid. I don't want to do it again.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I don't think any of us would like to exist under those conditions.
Is he an incumbent?
No,
No.
I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so why don't we open it up? We don't have tons of time, but I so appreciate you guys willing to join us at our meeting today. So I'm going to does anybody have a question? And would you want to ask a specific candidate, or would you like it to go to all four candidates?
I have a question for the candidates, all of them, which
Okay,
is
Steve.
what opinions do you have about the proposal, the natural gas deficit that we may have in the future? What do you have? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Why don't we start with we'll do the alphabetical backwards. So Mark Wiggin, do you want to jump in and maybe like 30 seconds? I know that sounds really abbreviated.
That is very quick. I'm a longtime oil and gas guy as well. I began my career in Cook Inlet. Buddies of mine worked at the Beluga River gas field for ARCO way back when. If you look at the Cook Inlet decline curve, it is irretrievably heading down. We are not going to turn that around. It is the board and Chugach staff really has come up with the thinking that we have to bridge this gap between where we are now and future long-term energy, be it renewable, be it other sources. With imported LNG, we're going to try to do it as cost effectively with as little infrastructure as possible. I think there's no other way, unfortunately. And I've been in the middle of that the entire duration since Hillcorp announced they would no longer honor long-term or provide long-term contracts.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So Dan Rogers, you're next.
Yeah, the LNG solution is what's been being talked about. It unfortunately is horrendously expensive, as Mark kind of alluded to there. I think there are some other options we need to look at first. My old company and I worked on some things having to do with some diversions down at Bradley that got us some more energy there. There's a discussion about raising the dam and diverting Dixon Creek in there, which should increase Bradley by about 25%. There are other options out there. If we have to go to LNG, that's going to hit the consumer very hard. I mean, that's going to be a big deal, even if it's interim. The problem on this is, and I go back to this, the reason we're in this position is because of short-sighted, single-minded people who were against a project 40 years ago in building more hydro back when we built Bradley. And that the reason we burned all of our beluga gas is because nobody wanted to build big hydro back then. There were too many other things people were looking at, and it was basically the environmental lobby that killed that project. So we need to, that's laying blame maybe, but in my world, I admit my problems, I admit my mistakes, but for the reason of learning for next time. We can't have this ideological anti-view of something and have it cause us big problems in the future.
Okay.
That is the sole reason we're in this position.
Okay, I appreciate that. Todd Lindley.
Sure. I think a couple of points that come to mind for me is when we look at the Cook Inlet natural gas, there's a couple factors. One, Chugach Electric claimed a decarbonization goal. So was the decarbonization goal the impetus for the drillers to change their drilling forecast to not have the supply readily available? Or was it the assumption that the DNR made that says there's no drilling in the Cook Inlet beyond 2030? I don't think that assumption is particularly good because I don't know that Hillcorp is the only source of drilling that comes from the Cook Inlet. And so when we look at those two factors, those are two things that are playing into how we're assessing the Cook Inlet. Now, I think long term, in order to manage the Cook Inlet gas supply, we have to look at firm power sources. So there's nothing that's going to be able to compete pound for pound when you look at coal and natural gas and even hydro. Each of them come with their own challenges, but I think to be able to manage the fuel supply diversification, we have to have a higher percentage than 82% natural gas, like is the fuel source today, to balancing and bringing in coal, hydro, and things like that that provide firm on-demand power. I mean, to Dan's point, in January, Eklutna's power was running at 100% capacity, whereas Fire Island Wind was running at almost 2%. So that's kind of how I would approach and give you an opinion on the Cook Inlet natural gas.
Okay, thank you, Todd. And Sam Kaysen.
Yeah, well, Todd put his finger on sort of the crux of the situation, which is that we currently are getting about 80% of the kilowatts that light our houses from natural gas. We need to diversify that fuel portfolio. Unfortunately, large hydro project is going to take at least 10 years to develop, and Hillcorp is not going to provide firm contracts for new gas starting 3 years from now. That means that we have to have a plan and a program to have reliable, dispatchable power available other than gas in the interim before we can build something like a large hydro project. Whether or not that includes gas, more gas from the inlet, or importing natural gas, under either scenario, the price of gas in the Cook Inlet is going to go up, and it's going to impact my electric bill. And I'm not really happy about that. And I think that we need to be creative, and we need to be diligent in examining what options we have so that we can have a long-term plan that actually serves to stabilize our prices and have a system that's worthy of the 21st century.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. Let's see, Dan Gleason, you have your hand up.
Here. Yes. When we, the promise, when MLMP and Chugach were going to merge, there was a promise made by somebody that our because of the scale of the merger and everything like that, that our kilowatt hours, cost per kilowatt hour should go down. However, of course, the gas issue, but I haven't seen our cost per kilowatt hour go down because of the change in scale. So what happened? Why didn't our cost per kilowatt hour go down when the merger happened?
Okay, I'm going to start with let's see, Dan Rogers.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a sitting board member, so I'm not the best one to answer that question. And I agree with Dan. I mean, and again, realize I'm a business guy. I operated a $60 million business up here for 25 years. But yeah, as a business guy, I've got the same question Dan Gleason's got. Why didn't this happen? And who was at the helm when it didn't happen? So I'll cede my time to Mark and Sam, because I wasn't on the board.
Okay, Mark Wiggin.
You bet. The I have to admit that I don't know the breakdown between on our 22 cents a kilowatt hour bill between fuel costs and all the other particulars, Dan. All the reports we get are indeed that we have achieved on personnel and depreciation and other matters. We have achieved most, if not all, of the savings. But as I said, come ask that question or members to be heard. I would love to, and we'll have staff who review this stuff all the time provide a fabulous answer. I can't give you a much better answer other than the fact that we're told that we indeed are achieving those savings, but fuel indeed is a straight pass through.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And Sam?
Yeah. Since the last rate review, because during the merger, there were no rate increases, the simplified rate filing process that Chugach had been utilizing to keep rates adjusted was suspended. Since the last time Chugach's rates were adjusted, inflation has gone up nearly 20%. Chugach is right now in front of the Regulatory Commission asking for a 6% rate increase. So that 14% of inflation that Chugach members are not having to deal with is because we have realized great efficiencies through the merger. And I think that's the short answer.
Okay.
Everything's gone up and we've been able to keep from going up as fast.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Maybe one more very quick question. Does anybody want to? Looks like maybe we don't have any more questions. So will just.
Hey, Kathy, did Todd get to answer that? I don't know if he's still on.
Excuse me, Todd. I apologize. No, you did
That's
not.
no problem. I don't know that I have much in the way of anything to offer. I was barely a resident coming in when the ML&P merger and everything was taking place. So I would say what Mark and Sam has provided is probably best at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Todd. And I'm sorry about that. Okay, so thank you again, candidates, for joining us today. And I appreciate your time. And I wanted to mention, so ballots will be mailed out, I believe, April 17th. And You can fill those out anytime between that, and they have to be submitted by May 17th, or you can go online and vote. And then the Chugach annual membership meeting is from 6 to 7:30 on May 17th at Change Point, Alaska at 6689 Change Point Drive. And they have lots of events and things for the family and kids, and probably lots of free stuff to give away. So yeah, Mark, real quick.
And may I just mention that Chugach has just sent out 78,000 emails the other night to all members of record that have an email with them. The easiest way to vote is just through those emails or through the website. So if your email, do look, you should have already gotten an email, I think end of last week, that was just a test email where it was sent out to make sure that your email is correct. So please check your email and vote that way. Let's try to get that vote over 13,000 or whatever it was last year.
Okay. All right. Good idea. Vote, vote, vote. That's our motto. Okay. Thank you so much, you guys. Really, really
Thank you
appreciate
all.
it.
Thank you.
And,
Thanks
move
a
on
lot,
quickly.
Kathy.
Yeah,
Really
you're
appreciate your service.
so welcome.
You
I'm
bet,
glad you guys
Kathy,
are all
good
able to
job.
attend on such short notice. I'm amazed.
Good job, guys, after all these years. And thanks, Chris, for stepping back up. Bye. Good night.
Okay. I'll see you next month. Mark, you
Yes.
should become a regular again.
I will. Bye.
Okay. We
So
all heard
should
that.
Sam.
And Sam too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And Dan.
And
Dan's a
Dan,
member.
that's right. I mean, we've got Turnigan well represented here.
Well, it's actually even funnier than this, and Sam and Mark can pitch in, but Cece and Bettina are both, like, literally I can throw a stone and hit either of their houses from here. So
Yeah.
we are very overrepresented any way you go.
Okay, thank you, Dan. All right. Okay. Very
Kathy,
quick. A few.
Matt,
What?
thanks, but actually my evening is running real short, and I've got about 2 or 3 minutes. I can give a quick report, but I won't be able to stay after that.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Matt. Yep, go ahead. We'll do legislative report right now. And thank you,
Yes.
Matt.
Taking me a little bit out of order. The big effort that's going on in the Capitol now, getting a lot of attention, is working through the budget process. The goal we're trying to work is for the Senate to get a capital budget that we send over to the House at the same time the House takes the operating budget, sends it over to the Senate. I think there's been a lot of hearings on the House Finance Committee trying to work out the budget, and all the same issues that we see every year. How are we funding essential services? Education is really getting a lot of attention. Public safety getting a lot of attention. Continuing questions about the size of the dividend, and we're actually trying to have a little bit more capital budget this year, and we're very much aware with regard to electrical infrastructure, making sure we get the money that's related to what we call the federal GRIP funding that will help some of the electric infrastructure along the rail belt make progress. But that's the biggest step that we've been having a lot of attention focused on here in the Capitol the last couple of weeks. And if you've got concerns about budget, be sure to keep us posted. And we may actually have not the largest amount of capital funding for the neighborhood, but it looks like those CAPSIS projects that you all sent in, we're going to have some money to be able to get some of those funded in the capital budget. So that's the short update. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody have questions for Matt? Okay, I know, Matt, we didn't get anything submitted specifically through the CAPSIS, but I know that you've had our CIP capital improvement list from last year, and pretty well our projects and our priorities stay the same. And so we appreciate you keeping an eye out for that. And anybody else have any quick comments for Matt or any questions? If not, Matt, once again, you're off the hook. You get off way too easy, I think. Way too easy. But thank you so much for all your work down.
Steve's got one, I think. Yeah.
What?
Hey,
What?
yeah, Matt, I just wanted to ask, it seems to be a lot of students protesting, I was kind of amazed to see all that. I just wonder if you had any opinions about that, or it's pretty remarkable to see that.
Well, it's it's always impressive to see students organizing. That protest is part of our First Amendment rights, and it's really important to see them. They actually not only were protesting across the state today, but there were a group of Juneau students that were not just outside the Capitol, but inside the Capitol, going from floor to floor. My office is on the 4th floor, and I was in the hall talking with them as I came by. One of them said, "What's up on the 5th floor?" I said, "You better go up there. That's where the finance committees meet." And they went right up.
Wow.
So I'm impressed to see the students out. It speaks volumes to folks in the legislature to know the students are that concerned about what's happening with education funding in our state.
Yeah. Okay, well, great. Well, thank you again, Matt, and keep us updated with your emails and things about what's happening down there, because things are, when is the legislative session normally over with?
121st day is May 15th.
May 15th. Okay, well, let's hope things can happen between now and then on some of these big ticket items.
We're working hard. I think everyone in the legislature wants to be finished on the 15th.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, we'll go back to I have a few announcements, and then we'll see if anybody else has any. So let's see. There is an open house for the transit center study. The downtown transit center study is looking at 3 locations to put a center. It would be either the ConocoPhillips parking lot southeast of 6th and I Street, the Chinook parking lot at 3rd Avenue and E Street, or the current downtown transit center that has been closed now for quite a while underneath the parking garage. They would do some modifications. So there is an online open house between April 3rd and May 3rd at www.anctransitcenter.com. If you want to, submit any preferences as far as location for that facility downtown. And it's that time of year, so municipality is definitely putting out the word for the pothole hotline. It's 907-343-MEND, MEND, and I think that translates to 343-6363, but it's MEND. And I'm sure as more of the snow melts, more of the potholes are going to pop up. So, and be careful when you drive, because they can wreak havoc on vehicles and bodies, all that jerking around. Also, NeighborWorks is getting the word out for Paint the Town, June 2024. And right now they're accepting nominees. They prioritize seniors, veterans, and those with disabilities who may want minor repairs and new paint on the exterior of their home. So you can nominate yourself or a deserving neighbor. Just go to Neighborhood Works website, www.nwalaska.org. And that's a great event that they sponsor every year. So let's see. And the last thing I wanted to announce was, I was asked to announce this. I think it's a great thing. The West High Exceptional Teacher Award process. They're accepting nominees, and the agenda email had a flyer attached, but nominations are being taken until February 15th. So if you know a great teacher that is deserving of this award at West High, be sure and nominate that person. So really appreciate that they do that every year to recognize teachers at West.
Kathy, is that date right? February 15th?
Oh, what did I say? I said
February
February.
15th.
Well, that's because, I don't have enough caffeine or something. It's April. Thank you, Dan, for catching that. April 15th is the deadline for nominations. Okay. Let's see. So that's announcements. And does anybody briefly want to share anything new going on in Turnigan? If not, we will move on to the executive board report. So we don't ever schedule a board meeting yet to announce, but you know, if anybody's interested in ever participating in our board meeting, you know, let any of the officers or board members know, and we'll contact you when that date's been set. And Chris, I have a question for you. Did you go ahead and post the March 7th TCC Zoom meeting on YouTube?
Yeah, I need to learn how to do that. So I need to speak
Okay.
with the last secretary, because the secretaries are responsible for that. I checked in with the community council leadership, and they said that secretaries or each community council needs to do their own posting, but I don't know how to do it. I did look into it. I need to speak with our former president.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, because that's something I have never done, but Carolyn Hall did it for us last year, which I wasn't even realizing. I thought FCC did that for us. So, but no, it'll be the secretary job. So if you can do that and then post anything that hasn't been posted in the past, that would be
Will
great.
do.
Okay. Okay, and that'll include today's as well, this evening's as well. Federation of Community Councils delegate report. I will skim through it very quickly because, you know, we're kind of behind on time, but it was on March 20th, and I'm the FCC delegate for Turnigan. So there was updates from the mayor's office by Trista Espy, and she provided, the mayor had vetoed the short-term rental ordinance that the assembly had approved. The opening of Sullivan Arena was March 9th. And so that's a big deal considering its past heyday as a great venue, and then COVID hit and it had a whole different use, but it's up and operating the way it was meant to be as of March 9th. There were Arctic Winter Games held in the Eagle River Valley. She went over, you know, the voting, the election that was just held, our municipal election. So we didn't have an assembly report. We didn't have a school board report. Dr. Hannah Heininghausen from UAA gave a PowerPoint presentation on acreage housing thoughts. And it was, I think that is posted online at on the FCC website. And if anybody's interested, she had lots of data that she provided, but it was kind of up to 2022. So it's not really current, but she did a really good job of kind of giving a summary on that as far as demands on housing and supplies and everything that we keep hearing about with regard to the housing issue. And so Pat Higgins was a school board representative giving a report to us as far as, you know, he focused on the funding situation and what's going on down at the legislative body and what they're doing. And then we had Jessica Parks from Next Step Initiative, and she provided a report on Next Step Initiative, another PowerPoint presentation. She's with the Anchorage Coalition to End the Homeless. So that was kind of the key focus on the meeting. We had council sharing, and they did announce then that the FCC has a new executive director. Her name is Ariana Bellizzi. It's Bellizzi. I've talked to her once in person and have exchanged a couple of emails, and looking forward to meeting her in person. The acting manager, Jean, is going to work through April 30th, and then she is retiring. She is stepping down. So, you know, the employment future of the FCC office and how it's run is going to go through some kind of a transition, but I'm sure, you know, we'll all figure it out and hope for the best. And thank you again to Jean, who's really done a yeoman's job stepping in and has been there for over 3 years. And I know she helps me a lot every month getting things out. So that's the FCC delegate update. So there's a small update on the Minnesota fencing wall, barrier thing that we've talked about, and we passed a resolution with regard to that infrastructure that was put in late summer. The AMATS Community Advisory Commission met on March 11th, and they did pass a resolution that asks for the removal of that. And because Bernard as well as Turnagain passed resolutions, and they went ahead and approved it. Although they did realistically say that they were told by AMATS that there's some kind of funding for Minnesota sidewalk improvements in a big stretch of Minnesota, including the stretch where that barrier was put up between Northern Lights and Benson. But that won't happen for at least a couple of years. The process won't even start for years. So still looking to see what we can get done in the interim to address that project that we passed a resolution on opposing that was put in and that we need to have removed. So that's the update on that, and a short update on Lineary Park, Marston Ballfield Diamonds. So it's gone through the formal naming process, and the committee, and I represent Turnagain on that committee. We saw a prototype of the actual sign that would go up, one per diamond, so one per baseball field, but the diamonds are actually going to be the items that are named. And so that installation will happen, and TCC had already approved the basic design and material in sometime last year. So they will go up after the snow is melted. So when you're down at Lineary Park, keep your eye for those naming signage on each of the diamonds down there. That was a long process, but it'll be good to see that done and recognize 3 names, individuals, and then 2 are just generic names for potential future renaming if there would be a need for that or a desire for that. So the Bike Alaska proposal, we just kind of found out about and didn't really know what to do with that. Hang on. So speaking of Lineary Park, I got an email from a member of Bike Anchorage that said they were applying to the Anchorage Park Foundation for a challenge grant to install permanent bike parking racks at several of the ball fields, including Lineary, and wanted us to support them on that. But I didn't get to the email till after the deadline was reached. But the board, assuming they submitted it, the board discussed this, and we just feel like, there is a master plan for that park that specifically shows where every amenity should be located, benches, bike racks, anything. So we would want to, assuming they get some money for that project, we would want to collaborate with them on where they would be installed. But it's too bad, they didn't notify us a little earlier, but at least we may have some bike racks down there at some point, maybe later on in the summer. I'm not sure when Anchorage Park Foundation will decide who gets grants. Okay, and lastly, and this just, I'm going to pique your interest and curiosity. I went to the Anchorage Transportation Fair on March 28th over at the Alaska Airlines Center, and Melinda, and I never remember her last name, but she worked with Muni. She saw me walking and she stopped and grabbed me and she said, "Kathy, I just want to let you know I have some ideas on how we could do something with Turnagain Street, because we all know Turnagain Street is a disaster. And then last summer, we were told that it will never get any kind of funding because as far as sidewalks, lighting, drainage, because of the really, really narrow right of way on that street between, south of Northern Lights there by Rustic Goat and then going south. So we were, thinking we'd never get any improvements there. She said, I've been thinking and I might have a few ideas. And then I said, oh gosh, great. What are they? And she goes, well, I don't want to share them yet. So I have no idea what she may be thinking of and what impact or cost or anything, but I just thought I'd let you know that somebody at the Muni is thinking about Turnagain Street, and I guess we just will have to say stay tuned on that item. So now we will get down to assembly report, and Anna Brawley contacted the board and said she was not going to be able to attend this evening's meeting. So she wrote out a report, and I am not going to read the whole, but I will summarize the items that she wanted to make sure that they were announced at our meeting this evening. So obviously we know now that even though it's not official, that the mayor's race, there will be a runoff for the elections. So ballots will go out on April 30th, and the runoff election day is May 14th. So that's for mayoral race runoff. And as we know, from the news, it looks like the three incumbents on the school board seats that were running, they will likely be reelected. Although again, that's not official yet. And, as of now, most of the bond propositions are passing, except the school bond is, kind of close. And then the cemetery bond, Prop 7, and the public restroom bond, Prop 8, it looks like they are going to fail. Nothing official yet, but based on the voting and tallying so far, it looks like that's the case. So Wednesday night, the House Finance Committee down in Juneau added the Assembly's #1 MOA funding request, which was $4 million to support the continuation of the congregate shelter at the old Solid Waste Services Administration building through the summer months. Otherwise, that would be closing on May 31st, because we're not planning to keep it open during the summer, but if they get $4 million from the legislature, that would allow it to remain open through the summer. And we've discussed this in our meetings in the past, the home initiative and the planning and zoning. There was testimony given to the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 18th. John testified on behalf of Turnagain Community Council. I did not testify because there were requests for them to continue the hearing, and in fact they did. They've scheduled another of the continuation of that hearing on May 20th. In the meantime, the the 3 assembly members that are sponsors of this home initiative ordinance, which is a consolidation of zoning categories and fewer restrictions on developers as far as on standards for development. They will have a work session on May 6th. And so that should be open to the public. So, that will be something that people will want to attend. And I believe it is, did Anna say it's going to be at the PM&E building, I think is what I refer to there off Elmore, in their training facility room. So if anybody's interested in that, it's on May 6th. Let's see, and then they're still waiting for final audited financials for fiscal year 2022. They still haven't gotten those. So there's more uncertainty going into their FY 24 budget revision process than would normally be the case. But they're moving forward and anticipate voting on the budget, including setting the property tax mill rates for this year by the end of April, by the end of this month. So that's what Anna wanted us to share this evening, since she wasn't able to be here in person. So that's it. So I'd say, does anybody have any questions? But I really don't want to open it up because you know, I would know how to answer some of that stuff. So we'll just leave it at that for now. And the home initiative is later on our agenda anyway. So let's see. Now, what did I do with my agenda? I'm not sure what I think I've done this at another meeting where somehow in the process I've missed up our agenda. So what's on the agenda next? This is embarrassing. Oh, I found it. Okay. Next is mayor's report. So is there anybody here from the mayor's office? We have that on our agenda every month, but typically nobody attends. So school board report, is there somebody from the school board to provide? Dave Donnelly is assigned to our council. And I don't see Dave didn't join us today. So airport report. I know I saw Eric Peterson, who is the communications guy for the airport, and I think we're probably going to have a fair amount of discussion with you, Eric. There's numerous airport items, but I'll let you go ahead and give your report, and then we'll kind of open it up to items that will fall under that category for discussion.
Yeah, so for the last update, we didn't have too much. I wanted to thank anybody for their participation in the Anchorage Job Fair, the ANC Job Fair. It went really, really well. A lot of people signed up for jobs right there. We had employers giving $10,000 sign-on bonuses right there, so it was a really awesome event. It was very well attended. So thank you for that. We don't have too much in the way of news other than so the airport is on track to have a 6% passenger total growth this year, which basically means if you think we move about 1.5 million people a year, take 6% of that, that's the additional seats that have all been added with regards to all the different airlines. So I know like United has dedicated an entirely new 747 to the airport and that kind of stuff. So we're on track to have a lot of growth with regards to passengers. And then other than that, I wanted to bring up the parking garage again, just because I've kind of said it ad nauseum, but I just wanted to make sure. The 4th floor of the parking garage at the South Terminal, it is going to go through construction again this summer, just because last summer, apparently the problems with the 4th floor were so great that it required another summer of construction up there. So it's going to be blocking the 4th floor up until July 31st. The 4th floor is actually already currently blocked off, but they won't start construction until April 15th. So if you or anybody you know currently has a car parked on the 4th floor of the parking lot, please go grab it, because if you don't, by April 15th, they will tow it. So they said that there's only 5 leftover cars up there. So hopefully they'll all get out of there. So yeah, and then other than that, so we have all the leases. I don't know if I was gonna probably just start with the ones that I find probably the most normal, but there's the one for the Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage. And I think if you'd sent all the different lease numbers, but these ones are pretty normal. The Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage has requested an extra year for construction, allowing them to go to extending them from 2025 to 2026. So it gives them an extra year to do all their planning and construction of their facilities and the things that they're going to be building there. So the next one is the Lake Hood Hangars Association. It is a hangar group that's over on the west side of Lake Hood. So their lease is designed specifically to incentivize construction of new hangars. So every time that they build a new hangar, basically they can get an extension of their lease. But this one is just kind of an outright 8-year extension, which gives them an 8-year extension, and it also allows them 8 more years to build an additional hangar. Currently, they have 1 on their property, and they have indicated that they would like to move up to 3. And then, so So the last one is the airport.
Eric, I'm gonna open each one of these up for a little bit of discussion if anybody wants to, and I'll kick it off with this Lakewood Hangars Association, and comments are due on April 25th at 4:30. So, my thinking on this is, they built the initial hangar quite a few years ago, and then the rest of it is just undeveloped. And this, I believe, was before your time, but when we met with Craig Campbell and others last year and potentially the year before, we said, that's when the tower, the control tower was, proposed to be moved, and Charlie parking was getting relocated then. It had to be relocated. So we suggested, John Isaacs and I, especially, we suggested that maybe the Charlie parking area could go in that large vacant area that Lakewood Hangars has never built another hangar. And so we were told that they would not give up any of the space that they want to lease, because they eventually want to develop there. But our counter was that this is airport land, and if the airport has a higher use, and these guys have not developed for so long, we're still pitching that. I don't think we've gotten very far, but then for them to even ask for more time to develop in that area, I think is a little disingenuous. But that's my take, and land use committee hasn't talked about this yet because these just came all rolling in at once. But what would be your response to what we said about that spot in the past?
Yeah, I mean, their current lease goes to, that would be, oh gosh, 25, be, why can I not do math at 5, 6, 7? So their current lease goes until 2053. So the relocation of the parking for the ATC tower needs to be done in a much, much, much closer fashion. It needs to be done probably within this year. So using their space, even if we were to try, we could probably request it to them person to person, but we can't legally force them to because it's their leased land and they can choose what they want to do with it. And the only alternative would be to cancel their lease, which involves really protracted litigation. And if the goal is to relocate that parking soon, it just wouldn't really work out that way.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Failing to just grant them an extension will result in protracted litigation.
No, if we had decided to cancel their lease for a multitude of reasons, it could result. I mean, we could cancel the lease and maybe nothing would happen, but a lease cancellation can result in protracted litigation. And if the goal is to move the parking from currently the tie down parking right near where the new ATC tower is, relocated to another location, we need to do it quite soon. So I'm sure that the airport maybe probably directly asked them if that was something that they would be interested in, but I don't think it's gone anywhere.
John, I believe that we were told that they had been approached and they declined. But this is one of those cases where I would think that there ought to be some loophole where the airport can say, we have a higher and better use for this land. You've been sitting on it and not doing a thing with it for years now. And FAA would say, yep, there's a caveat somewhere where if they haven't developed something, a long-term lease, and the airport itself has identified a higher and greater and more immediate need, that could happen. But
right now,
I'm not a lawyer and I don't know, but that's what John and I, had certainly pitched to them in the past. But we don't have an attorney in our pocket to look into that.
But right now, the airport could choose not to give them an 8-year lease extension for no work. And then the airport could use those lands for whatever they needed, like parking or relocation of other things.
Well, if we didn't grant them an extension, their lease, the original lease term still goes till 2053.
What about subcontracting them from doing a sublease? Asking if that they would allow the relocation of Charlie parking in the interim until they would actually be ready to develop it with hangars.
Yeah, I mean, if they agreed to that, that would be possible.
So that's something that we should put in our comments.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
And maybe you can communicate this idea in the interim to the powers that be that, like maybe the airport manager.
Yeah, it seems like you already told the airport director, so.
Well, we haven't had this we haven't discussed this now for quite a few months, and Karen brought up a really good point that, at the very least, we shouldn't support the extension of the lease. And so then that kind of triggered, hey, why don't we go ahead and ask for an interim use of that vacant area for Charlie parking relocation, at least for now, and not fill a bunch of wetlands north of Echo parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantee that this extension will be signed.
How do they justify it?
I don't know. That would be the leasing team has their own kind of team together that justifies whether or not they would like to sign any individual leases.
Well, it would certainly save a lot of money in terms of the cost of the tower relocation project if they didn't have to develop from scratch.
Yeah, I mean,
high value wetlands, Class A wetlands.
The airport wants to incentivize
relocated trailer
as much
parking.
as possible, and you would think that we do have a lot of leverage, but this is not the only tenant on airport property that we are trying to push to build more stuff.
Okay, well, we'll move on, and in my email, I did indicate that we probably would have a land use committee meeting to discuss, because there's multiple leases now, so I'll let you go ahead and jump to the next lease that's out, and that comments are due April 25th on this one.
What? Yeah, so the next one I have is Airplane Hangars Inc. It's the two leases they're congruent leases. So it's owned by the same company, Airplane Hangars Inc., but both of their leases are right next to each other. And basically this leaseholder wants to build another hangar. However, we don't allow any construction to straddle an actual line. So like a lease line right there. And, we're not going to allow this person to connect both of their leases to just create one lease together. So the leaseholder has asked that one lease be expanded and one lease be shrunk. And so the larger lease would be able to expand would be large enough so that they could build another another hangar.
This is GA, right?
So this is Airplane Hangars Inc. They're for the ADA numbers. It's 30773 and 32376.
Right, but this would be for GA hangars, not cargo.
Oh yeah, this is all. We're starting over at Lake Hood. This is all GA. So this is another hangar over near Lake Hood. It's over on the north side of Lake Hood.
So nothing is developed in those two lots right now. I mean, I
There's
can get in the car and drive over there to refresh my memory.
Yeah, there is one hangar. There's one small hangar on the southwest corner of like the lot 3C.
Eric, this is Sarah. Do you have the ability to share the exhibit that's on that public notice?
Yeah, I can do it. All right, let me get that.
That would be nice to have a visual on.
Yeah, and I
Thank
did
you.
have both the notice and the location drawings sent out with the email meeting notice, but I know it was a lot of click here. So yeah, if you could do that, Eric, that would be helpful.
All
Thanks,
right, are you
Sarah.
ready?
Yeah, right now, Kathy, they have floats up on racks on that lot. It's when you drive by, it's on your left-hand side there. And he's just got a bunch of floats and racks and stuff like that. He's got his building materials set there, just needs the space to build.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So Eric, are you gonna post that visual?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I forget how you share screen in this. Dun, dun, dun. Or am I allowed to?
I am not a technical person.
If you go to the bottom, share screen should pop up.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you
Yeah,
see it?
got it.
Yeah, so this is them right now. So there's lot 3C, lot 6C. They are attempting to kind of shrink lot 3C over to make large lot 6C larger and then build a hangar over on this one. And that would basically result in this line moving to the left.
Okay, and the comment deadline for that is not that one, is April 21st. So a lot of these coming in fast and furious. Is that on purpose to make us work really hard?
And no,
Like
our the gentleman who does like, well, I actually put the leases out through like public noticing, but like the actual lease, all the stuff is written by one gentleman who's been out for medical related reasons for 2 to 3 weeks, and then he came back a couple days ago and was like, "Here's all of these leases done." I was like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. And then let's see.
So there's those 3 leases. I think there was those 3. I also did want to, I guess in the meantime, since I was showing my screen, because I was going to show this, but at the last TCC meeting, you guys had asked 2 questions about, with regards to the construction update, the security fencing. So the security fencing that's going to be replaced this summer is up here. So it starts at the north part of, which here, well, let me zoom out first so you guys can kind of see like, so this is our construction map. This is the airport. Oh, where's the zoom in? So up here on the north, starting about basically right here, is on the north part of the north runway. So all of the security fencing that goes down here, and then goes east, and then it connects in with UPS's buildings. So all of that is going to be replaced this summer.
In
You
the
hit it.
same location?
Oh yeah, just they just replaced it
Okay.
the exact same place.
Okay.
And then the other question that you guys had asked, I guess, was so over on the west side, there's a perimeter road that is supposed to. The perimeter roads at the airport are supposed to follow the perimeter, by which they mean there is a security fence that follows all along the perimeter of the airport. Down here, can you guys actually see my mouse? I've always wondered that. Okay, good. So over here, there is the security fence kind of follows this road parallel right here. However, it kind of looks like there's a little road there. That is mostly just because sometimes people do get up there in order to check the fence. But the TSA is actually wants us to have a road that goes along the side of the actual fencing, just so that in case of like, this could be anything from like wildlife gets caught in the fence to just needing to check it for repairs or anything like that. So there's kind of a dirt road right here. The airport is going to build a dirt road that goes up this way, falls parallel to the actual fence for easy access to the security fence, and then it connects back down here.
Okay.
It goes up and around, and it'll be a gravel road.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, Kathy, I do. Eric, I noticed that as the fence sort of goes further west, kind of to the south of the Salvation Army detox facility, I noticed some paint markings there. It almost implied they were going to be moving that fence inwards towards the woods. And I was wondering if that was the case, and maybe what you're telling us is there's also going to be an additional gravel road that kind of goes along that location also.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, the security fence is not being moved. So the currently existing one is just, I mean, it's not even going to be replaced this year, but it's not moving. They're just building a gravel road behind it for easy access to the fence.
Okay, and sort of this was an area that's kind of, again, like south of the Salvation Army detox along the edge of the woods there, and there were some paint marks that almost looked like it would imply that that fence was being moved towards the woods about another 20 or 30 feet, and that's the area I'm curious about.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it is not being moved.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another reason they might be doing a locate over there?
I don't know.
Good question.
Well, we'll get to that in 1 second, but I wanted to I wanted to see if you could provide a follow-up. Turnigan Community Council voted on and submitted a comment letter on the K-Lot LLC. It was ADA 323070. And I was wondering if there's any follow-up to anything that we provided in our comments that was taken into consideration in terms of, and that's the area just west of the Turnigan neighborhood on the southeast end of Lake Hood Strip.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I'll let you guys know right now that the lease was signed. So the K-Lot development is now officially going to happen. Of course, we can see what happens over the next couple of years. The airport, of course, did take into consideration a lot of TCC's comment. You know, kind of a write-up here of everything we kind of did. But yeah, so it has been granted. We're now then basically the next steps are going to be environmental review and design, which is going to take a number of years. And basically at this point, we have mostly just sent all of the comments from TCC to the K-Lot developers to be incorporated in their design plans. Because a lot of your comments about like western facing doors and the lighting, that kind of stuff, that will all come in the design process. The thing that I would note would be that the airport has specifically asked for, so there's a 150-foot buffer, which by the way, well, here, let me share screen again. So just so you guys can make sure that we know where this is. View. How did I do this? Start sharing. Where is this? Okay. No, I had Google Maps up. There we go. Yeah, so as everybody is aware, it is basically right here. It's kind of a triangular plot right here. So the development will be going, originally you had posted in the comments about a 150-foot buffer. What's going to happen is, in addition to the 150-foot buffer that's going to go all along the east side, right next to the Turnigan community, there's going to be an additional 20-foot buffer, and this is written specifically into their lease. So as opposed to the things that are in the design process, which is going to be a negotiation, this is not negotiable. They must have it. There's going to be an additional 20-foot buffer. The buffer must have adult planted trees in them that must be going all the way up and down. So we've incorporated that as specifically into the lease, and we know the Turnigan Community Council's preference for trees. So we put them in there. And yeah, other than that.
Can I interrupt you, Eric? Sorry. So are you talking about, so the 150-foot buffer starts right on the property line, the chain link fence, and goes west. And then you're saying west of that 150 buffer is another 20-foot buffer?
Yeah, so the total buffer.
So it's a west of the 150, another 20-foot, where I assume if there's existing deciduous and evergreen trees, they would keep them. And then you're saying they have to plant more trees of
yes.
What kind of species?
Well, that was actually, do you guys have a preference?
Oh, evergreens for sure. You know, we want year-round buffering of all the impacts that neighborhood is going to be hit with.
Yeah, which also to let you know, which I was specifically told to let you all know, for FedEx did agree to change their trees to evergreens for all of their buffering on the east side of their new construction. But yeah, so I don't know if we specifically told them exactly which tree we want in the lease, but we did put that we can request that, so we can request that. But yeah, so the buffer will be 170 feet, so a little bit longer than the 150, and in that 20 that's right there. And yes, if there's any currently existing trees, they're just going to leave them there. So it's only in like, you know, they just have to plant new trees. And then there's very specific things about like how many feet each tree has to be from each other to create a buffer there.
Okay. So at some point we'll probably, you know, probably a land use committee, you know, we can get into more of a visual of to see what that looks like, but that's important information. So I appreciate you providing that. So anybody else have a quick comment on or question about the K-Lot follow-up lease? Okay. So then another announcement, you know, that we officially got was the airport communications plan. And so just wanted to bring that up. as far as Turnigan Community Council had submitted comments 2 years ago when there was a notice, because it's supposed to come out as an update every 2 years, but nothing was done 2 years ago. So, we got the notice that comments are due in May, I believe. Trying to find my email here.
I think it's May 15th.
May 15th. But we submitted comments 2 years ago, and if nothing's changed, then should we just resubmit those?
I mean, yeah, if your comments haven't changed, then yeah, just resubmit the same one.
And the communications plan did never change from 2020.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe that's what we were told before. But can you check that just to make sure that we've got that correct?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to recreate the wheel if we don't have to. Okay. And then the last thing that, well, that's actually not part of the report itself. So does anybody else have anything for Eric before we move on to old and new business? And the first item under that is also airport related.
Kathy, I just wanted to thank Eric and those who've worked on trying to incorporate comments and find better solutions for some of these leases that'll improve use for the neighbors and reduce the hassle for the leasee too. So thanks for your work on that and the rest of your team.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Yes, we do appreciate you kind of following up with all of this for us. So if there's no other questions under officially the airport report, then we'll go into old and new business. And the first item is a proposed airport hardstand development and road realignment in West Air Park. And John, I'm going to go ahead and let you jump in because you're the one that dragged me over to the airport table and said, you need to take a look at this. And is there any way that you can somebody can screen share what I scanned and had sent out with our meeting notice, a partial, the western half of the map that they were handing out at the transportation fair? Do you have that, John?
You're still muted.
Oh, yeah, John,
Sorry.
you're
Yeah,
muted.
let me go ahead and talk and see if I can find it. I had it pulled up and I just don't understand where it has gone. So okay, there it is. So let's see. So the screen share, what do I need to do here?
I think go down to the bottom of the
Share
Zoom.
screen. Okay, got it.
Share screen. It's right beside the chat and the reactions.
Okay, does that people see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Almost.
So can you see?
I'm not seeing it yet, but maybe others are. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, thanks, John.
So as a little bit of history, when we were working in the airport master plan update meeting, they had showed that as more of a long-term project, there could possibly be what they would call the West Air Park cargo development. And that would be airport land to the west of the north-south runway, stretching about from where the water treatment plant is down to where the tank farm is, and it follows along the boundary of where Warrenzoff Park was. And we came away from that meeting feeling that that was going to be a longer term development. When we went to the aviation table at the transportation fair, they had this graphic. And what it showed was this red area to the left of the north-south runway as being something that's potentially a more short-term construction, which would be some new cargo hard stands. And associated with that would be a couple of things. It would have this area, if you can see my mouse, that's going to be some new cargo hard stands. It would be a new internal road that would go internally around the fence, around the north-south runway tip down to this area. And then they would relocate the existing road that goes along the west side of the runway to Salvation Army around this area of the cargo stand. And kind of what surprised us is that this seems to be a much shorter term project than we thought was going to occur and implied by the airport master plan. One of the things that was explained to me is that as there are larger jets, the existing hard stands the airport has are not sufficient to handle those larger jets, so they're going to be converting a lot of the hard stands. In some places where there were 3, it's now going to be 2, and some places where 4 is now going to be 3, and they have to find a new area for hard stands. So that was why they're proposing to do so. But this is kind of a surprise to us, and I guess we'd like to find out a little bit more information about when that's going to occur and what's involved with that. And I don't know if that's something you can look into, Eric.
Oh no, I could already speak to some of it. So
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
this graph. So yeah, as kind of a context to it. So the airport's current large problem with regards to, especially to its cargo, is that we don't have enough parking spaces, specifically hard stands, which are basically just plain parking spaces. And it is something that the airport has been pursuing for a while, especially with regards to private development. Like that's what on the South Airport North Link is hard stands. It's parking spaces, right? Done by a private developer. However, the airport needs parking spaces as soon as possible, especially because of a lot of the recent snow events. A lot of the parking at our airport becomes basically completely chaotic. And we would like some new public parking spots. So public parking spaces are ones that any airline can use as opposed to private ones that like FedEx and UPS have. So we would like to build them as soon as possible. However, that still means in airport construction terms, it's still a far time off. The expected idea would be 2027, 2028 was when this would start. Who knows if that will ever happen? However, that is currently what the airport is looking at. There's no guarantees for 2027, 2028 will be happening. And as we kind of talked about with like that lease earlier with regards to like litigation and that kind of stuff. So we're looking at this kind of West Cargo Airport Park. It's kind of weirdly kind of up there as opposed to down kind of in like the corner of where the 2 runways are. The airport has a leaseholder down there that's been in protracted litigation for a very long time. That company was intending on building hard stand parking down there. That has not come about. So the airport has decided that it no longer wants to wait and wants to build its own public parking spaces, which is what this is.
So I guess a couple questions. One would be, if you could resolve that litigation, would it be possible to build those hard stands within the fence line down in that lower southwest portion that's currently under litigation? You wouldn't have to build it in this location?
Absolutely. That was what the company wanted to build.
Okay. So then one other thing that's shown on this map, which again kind of comes into the long-term implications of a West Air Park, is it shows a potential new road realignment that, assuming if the airport were to develop its land that it owns here on the west side of the runway, it would eventually relocate the road that currently runs along the west side of the runway, kind of along the property line between where the airport land is and where the Point Warrenzoff Park land is. And again, that shows on the map. I would assume that's a fairly long-term development, but it was just kind of a surprise to see that there.
Yeah, because the as you can kind of see that West Cargo expansion, the shaded and orange part, it goes right over where the road is currently. So any form of like, if they were going to build it there, it would require the road to be moved west.
Right. And it either required to be moved west, the dog leg around that area, or you saying if you were to build that orange line, orange area, would you already go ahead and completely relocate the road at that point in time along that alignment?
I mean, I'm not exactly sure if the current alignment shown in this map is going to be exactly what turns up, because this is going to be years and years from now. But yes, it would require complete realignment along the western boundary.
Okay. I guess, before I go back to Kathy for questions, as this thing progresses, we would be interested in being involved in discussions on what could be done in terms of mitigation and timing and what some of the impacts might be.
Oh yeah, you all be involved. I will be coming to these meetings and I will let you know.
Kathy, is there anything else you want to say on this before we open it up to the council as a whole?
Well, Mike Lee is the one who was staffing the airport one of the airport representatives staffing the table there at the airport, the Anchorage Transportation Fair. And Mike indicated that orange development, hard stand development, could happen in a couple of years. And that's what John and I, besides the visual, we're really taken aback by this very, ways sooner rather than, the February 6th presentation on the airport master plan update said that kind of thing would, that would be a long, long term. And you just indicated, well, that might not happen until 2027, 2028. Mike Lee said a couple of years. So I think, this sounds fairly fluid in terms of who's saying what from the airport perspective. And this would be a pretty critical, and Mike admitted that once that first orange area would be developed, then they envision, i.e. the airport, to go ahead and continue development there in the, technically West Air Park area of the airport. So that would be just the first step of massive development. And that's why the road would be realigned to just prime that whole area for development. So, we're getting mixed messages on how, the timing and the extent of this. And as John indicated, we certainly need to have more of the discussion, and this probably merits a land use committee meeting, because we've got other things on our agenda, for discussion at this meeting, but certainly this isn't going to be the last time that we're going to have probably a lot more questions, and I'd like some clarification.
So Kathy, I guess if there's no other questions from the council as a whole, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Eric?
I have one question.
Okay, I don't know who's so Kathleen, I see you. I'm limited on who I'm seeing right now. So
I just have a quick question. Could somebody with their pointer show where the coastal trail is along that stretch? It's closer to the coast, I think, right?
The coastal trail comes along the east side of the sewage treatment plant and then cuts to the coast and stays pretty much along the coast. But again, not everyone knows that where this red line is, that is sort of the boundary of what's known as the Point Warrenzoff Park. So the coastal trail is here, but this is dedicated parkland in here.
So likely the land and the trees and everything, which is on airport land, inside that red line is all going to go away eventually as the airport develops. Is that right? Is that what you're saying, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, not in any short term, but yes, all of that land is technically put forward for a West Air Park.
Okay.
So all the development there
Uh-huh.
eventually could take down all of that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify and understand that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, and who else?
Kathy?
Chime
This
in?
is Kathleen Belaski.
Oh yeah,
Kathy.
Kathleen, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what a hard stand is.
Oh yeah, a hard stand is just a word for a parking spot for a plane. So like if you have a 747 that needs to just stop and like refuel, they
Oh,
take you to a
okay.
specific parking spot where they park the plane while they do all that.
Well, and
Okay.
technically, I mean, it does require concrete. It's sort of specially prepared to take the load of the plane. So it has to be constructed where it's a specific space with specific dimensions to be able to handle the aircraft that's serving.
Okay. All right. Are seismic studies part of this whole plan?
Oh, I truly have no idea.
Well, given that we're a big earthquake place, that might be something to think about.
Yeah, I would assume the airport does seismic studies for almost everything that happens out here.
I haven't looked at it for quite some time, but there is a, it was developed quite some time ago as part of a larger document where the municipality has all of the bowl area ranked from, bright red, high risk, risk, moderate, lower risk, and lower. And I honestly don't recall where east of the north-south runway area falls as far as color. I certainly know that as you get closer to the coast, it's more red. And where the the tight squeeze of the coastal trail, the end of the north-south runway, Warren's-Off Drive, that's all in red. I mean, that's, and it's eroding now, but if we had an earthquake, it would all be gone. If we had a 7.4 earthquake, it would all be gone.
Typically for a foundation, they don't do a seismic study other than whether or not the foundation is properly designed to handle the physical load that's being applied upon it. So probably, just a foundation of paper, large piece of concrete, they're not going to, that's sitting on the ground, they would probably not do any type of a seismic study on that. For above ground structures that wiggle as the ground wiggles with it, they do seismic studies on that. But typically for the foundation, it's only for a load calculation, make sure they have the proper amount of fill and type of fill and depth of fill to handle the load of the aircraft.
Okay, thank you, John, and thank you, Kathy.
Sure. And the other thing that I'm sure they would do, because I see that it's being done with every lease and development out at the airport, is there would be an archaeological study to see if there's any indigenous archaeological things within that general area. We know for a fact there is a site within Point Warren's-Off Park boundaries, but I couldn't speak to, anything airport owned at this point.
And Kathy, I'd seen Sarah Haley's hand up. I don't know if
Oh,
it's still up
Sarah.
or not.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not seeing people, so thanks for pointing that out, Sarah.
Oh, that's okay. I just was gonna tell Kathleen that one of those Papa gates, you know how there's over by FedEx, there's Papa 1, 2, and 3. Those are all hard stands. So that's about the size that you would see like an aircraft parking gate.
Okay, all right, thank you, Sarah.
If that helps
I
at
think
all.
I would know that. You would think I would
No,
know
that's
that.
okay. I was just trying to pull you back to the good old days.
Oh, yeah, no, don't do that. Thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
well, unless anybody else has a quick comment or question at this point, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item. But Eric, one, thank you again, because I knew there was going to be a lot of airport related items to throw at you. And two, we'll definitely need to be scheduling a land use committee meeting. Also a meeting just with the director and other high level people like we have done every few months, and further continue our discussion on some of these things because they merit more than a regular council meeting can provide. So
We'll see. We don't have an airport director in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I
So
was
we'll
going
see.
to ask you, what's the status of that, please?
Oh, yeah, fill us in, please.
I don't know because the hiring of the airport director is done at a higher level than what I get to see. So I have no answers. They had a public job posting, it closed. I don't know anything that's happened since then. But the current airport director is, I mean, he's still around. He'll still answer questions, but he is currently slated to basically end at the end of this month.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Okay, the next item under old and new business is an update to the Fish Creek Trail Connection project. It was also something that jumped out at us attending the Anchorage Transportation Fair. So if there's any way, maybe John, you could do another, did you pick up a flyer that wasn't marked on? I drew on mine that was at the Fish Creek table.
I did pick up a flyer, but I have not scanned it. Did you send it out as one of the attachments or no?
Well, I may have.
I'm gonna look real quick.
I did 13 of those, and so I don't remember if that was one of the things. Oh yeah, I think I did. Because I went online, I went on their website and printed out an unmarked one.
Okay, so Kathy,
So-
I'm gonna share a screen here I
Okay,
think in a
thank you.
minute as soon as I can find out where it went. I tried to pull it up, but I don't know what happened to it. Bear with me here. So keep talking while I see if I can pull it up.
Okay, well, again, John and I, as well as other members of Turnigan, like Steve Montooth was there for a time, and Kathleen and Jean Belowski was there. They were there, attended the fair, and Dan was there. And so we weren't all at each station at the same time, I don't think, but we were well attended at that fair. And one of the tables, of course, was the AMAT's Fish Creek Trail Connection Project that our council has been, a key part of following ever since it got put the #1 CIP project for Spenard Community Council, and Austin Wynn Davis fought really hard to get some initial funding to jumpstart it. And so that project is continuing, and matching federal funds were on the April 2nd ballot under the Parks and Rec bond. So assuming that bond will pass, then that's just another step forward from a funding perspective of this trail project. So it's definitely moving forward.
Hey Kathy, the
So-
graphic should be up now.
Yes, it is. Thank you, John. So John, you want to take the lead on this one as well?
So they've chosen a preferred alternative. They've been very, very, very quiet. We've sort of pestered them with status updates over the last year and heard nothing. And now they've sort of chosen a preferred alternative. And I'm going to go over the preferred alternative, but then go into two of the major implications. The preferred alternative on the south end starts on the west side, outside the fence line of the existing railroad and right-of-way, goes along that, goes underneath the Fish Creek Bridge, and then sticks along the west side of the railroad track, where again, there's, I think, an existing cleared road that we walked along that takes us out to here and then connects into the coastal trail. And since I have my cursor in this area, one of the things we were really surprised to see is they are now proposing to relocate the existing coastal trail as part of this project. They are talking about moving it out into the mudflats, where it would now be this blue line is where the coastal trail would be, existing coastal trail would be moved out, and the connection would follow this line along here. So you have the white existing coastal trail, you have the light blue of the connection, and you have the light blue of this moving the coastal trail further out into the mudflats. There's a number of potential implications of that. It probably needs a Corps of Engineers permit. We don't know what sort of NEPA compliance it requires, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But that's sort of the implication number one. The implication number two is we asked them what were they going to be doing on this south end? What route they going to be choosing? And they said they were going to be going along the toe of the bluff. They would be excavating into the bluff. They would be putting in a retaining wall, but they would be doing nothing, quote unquote, on top of the bluff. And that's about as much detail as they gave us. We indicated in talking to them, we would really like to see a more detailed cross section of what exactly it is that they're proposing in here, but that is what they told us. So otherwise, I think this is an area of interest and contention given the neighbors who live along here. And this is sort of a new surprise in terms of going out into the wetlands here. But otherwise, this is probably the least impactful route in terms of impact on fish and wildlife and vegetation and things like this if it continues along this area. Their schedule indicates that they are going to be doing community council briefings between now and the end of August. And we need to sort of schedule something with them for probably a land use committee meeting before we end up going away for the summer. So that's on our agenda. And I think we would have a lot of questions for them in terms of what they're proposing to do in this area to the south and what they're proposing to do in this area on the north. We did ask whether they were still going to be pursuing what they call a categorical exclusion for their NEPA compliance. And when you do a categorical exclusion, you don't have to ask for any more public comments. It's kind of like doing a checklist. I asked them if they were going to be doing any more public comments, and they said they got plenty of public comments and they wouldn't be asking for any more. So if they go with that categorical exclusion route, they do not need to ask for public comments. If this requires a core permit, that may put the project in a different realm. The Corps may want public comments and they may require an environmental assessment, but we just don't know yet. We're trying to do a little bit of research. I did check the railroad board agenda to see if this is on their board meeting for the next upcoming board meeting, and it is not. So we don't know what's going on there. I think if they were to go ahead and construct this, their chart shows that they'd probably be constructing it in 2025, if I'm not mistaken, looking at my various piles of paper here.
Yeah, that's what they said would be next year.
Yeah, they were starting, yeah, in 2025. So that's my update. I don't know, Kathy, anything you wanted to add to that before we go to general questions from the group?
I have some comments too, because I stopped at the Transportation Committee or the Fish Creek project as well regarding the southern portion where it goes by my property, John.
Okay, John, and we'll jump to my comment would be, we haven't heard from them for about a year. About a year's gone by, and when they said that, it was like, whoa, you're gonna put realign the coastal trail there on the north side into the mud flats, and when did you decide that? Oh, it was a few months ago, and they keep saying on their website, oh, we're doing public outreach and we're keeping everybody informed, and that just isn't the reality of the situation. And so when I saw this was going to be part of the transportation fair, I went on the website, not even realizing this was going to be part of this, to see if I could find a cross section of what the details, because it's like, hey, we've selected a preferred alternative, the part that John Haxby wants to jump in on, just to see if there was anything visual about how they were going to do the trail in there. There's nothing on their website. What they did have on their website was a much more detailed aerial map than this, with real thick lines of that preferred route. And you can see where the trees are. They have the route of the trail mowing through trees, that whole length, instead of being on the east side of the trees and more into the gravel, area where the informal trail used to be that everybody used. And so when I brought that up at the transportation fair, Noah King, who is one of the AMETS, he's a project DOT team person, he said, oh, well, we haven't figured all that out yet. But yet they had a very slender line showing exactly where it was going to be, as opposed to this visual that's all fat. And it showed it plowing through trees. So, I mean, this project needs a lot more discussion before we can allow them to move forward. But John Haxby, go ahead. That was just very disconcerting for see, there's very little detail on some things on the website, and yet there is if you look closely.
All right. Well, just to fill you in on my discussions, number one, you can imagine I'm not much for this thing. And they were very light on detail when I started talking to them, and were almost really condescending that I was opposed to this project and then I started to push them. And interestingly, John Isaacs, you said that they told you they were going to run it kind of by where my place is, at the toe of the hill. And is that what you heard?
That's what they told me.
Right. Okay. So let me tell you what the real plan is. They told me, after I pushed them pretty damn hard, I said, there's a pipeline down there. Is your trail going to be at the toe, to the east of that pipeline, at the toe of the hill? Or is it going to be to the west of the pipeline, deep into the bank, and above the pipeline to the west of the bank, or to the west of the pipeline? They said it is going to be in the bank, up the slope, above the pipeline, to the west of it. Now, very interestingly, since we last everybody came out to my home and saw what the potential impacts were at my place. I've done quite a bit of research on this. The railroad right-of-way is actually an easement. It is not owned by the Alaska Railroad. It is an easement over other people's land, which includes mine. All of the properties that abut the railroad easement basically own the land to the center line of the railroad. So what that means is that the Alaska Railroad has an easement, and what they're maintaining is they can do anything they want in that easement. Now, the stated purpose of that particular easement is for railroad, telegraph, and telephone, and that's what was put in the original patents of the land. Nothing changes that, except for the fact that the railroad believes they have the exclusive right to do inside of that easement whatever they want. Now, if you take a look at any easement, and I bet you every person in this town has an easement on their property, an electric easement or a natural gas easement or a sewer easement. If the Alaska Railroad is able to get away with something like this simply by the sheer force of their financial might, then imagine the electric easement on your property going to somewhere across your property, the Chugach Electric saying, guess what, guys, we have this easement on your property. We're going to invite a bike trail. Guess what? We're going to invite all these different companies to use our easement on your property. Easements are very specific in purpose, and whatever is the stated purpose is what it can be used for. If it's not used for that, the underlying property owner has the right to use the balance of the easement. This is probably better suited for a land use committee discussion. But I tell you what, is that in looking at this thing, the railroad is taking a lot of license by saying that they can invite a third party or any third party into this easement, which includes the bike trail. And when I confronted the AMAT or the Noah King and Taylor Keegan, they actually got a little bit condescending, laughed in my face. And I said, well, I talked to the railroad about this, about the use of an easement for a bike trail. And I asked them, I just said, look, if I wanted to put a daycare in my backyard on that easement, that railroad easement, could I do it? And they said, no, we could deny you. I said, if you wanted to put a third party Montessori daycare for 3-year-olds in my backyard on your easement, on that easement, could you do it? They said, yes, theoretically we could. I said, could I stop you? They said, absolutely not.
Well, yeah, clearly this is a kind of a new thing that's come up that I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because this just seems like there's a lot more work on this than their view of the world is indicating. So yeah, we definitely need a land use committee on this as well.
And so I think, Kathy, what we'll try to do, we should try to.
Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Sorry, we should try to schedule it before we go away for the summer at the end of June, and just make sure the entire CC is invited to it so that anybody who wants to come and listen to this can. So I guess we'll just have to figure out a date to do so.
John, okay. I'd like to participate. I am going to be out of the country from May 14th until June 6th. So anytime outside of that, I am free to meet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you for letting us know your schedule. Not just out of town, out of the country. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we're running behind a little bit. If I could ask for moving the order of the agenda to allow Carrie Sumner, who's principal of Romig, to go ahead and go next so that she doesn't have to hang out at our meeting any longer than is necessary. Could I have a motion to
so moved? Move.
thank
Change
you,
the order of the
Is there
day.
a second?
Second,
Thank you, John. Is there any objection to moving the Romig Trojan subject up now to where we're at on our agenda? If not, then hi, Carrie.
Hey, guys.
You've got the floor. Go ahead and you know, briefly fill us in on what's going on with the Trojan logo and Romig.
Thank you, Kathy, and thanks for letting me join your meeting. It's been really interesting to hear your conversations. I am visiting because Romig is older than I am, but that Trojan's about the same age that I am, around 50 years old. He was done by Mr. Stutzer in the 70s, and I'm referring to the big 30-foot Trojan that's on the front of Romig right by the door. And so just like I just had shoulder surgery, I think it's time for all of us to get an update. And so we're pretty excited. We've been working with an artist and with our advanced art students for a plan to update him. We are going to be removing the pieces, the wooden pieces that make him three-dimensional off of the wall, and working with the artist to repaint them, update them, make them look a little more modern, put those back up on the wall, and then retrace his outline in a more contrasting color, because right now he's white paint on cream paint, and that's just, a lot of people drive by every day and just see the floating shield and don't even realize he's a whole person. And so we're gonna do that with the artist, and then we're working with kids on aspects for more of a background mural to make him stand out even more, because often people either go to West thinking they're at Romig, or go to Romig thinking they're at West, vice versa. And so we really are hoping that will make our area more distinct. We were given a small allocation of funds a while ago, and then things got in the way. We weren't able to move forward, but we were given a small allocation of funds a little while ago, and then our PTA has been doing fundraising. And so we're ready to go. The artist is a local artist from the Valley who's done mural work before. Our art teacher has done mural work before with students on a large scale. So we're really excited, and we'll be rolling out the prototypes and getting feedback over the next few weeks. And then we're hoping to have him start coming off the wall end of April, beginning of May, and back up on the wall, hopefully before school's even out. The artist will go back and of course do all the touch-ups. She'll be doing the line work, and the kids will really, don't tell them this, but they're just filling in the center parts, right? Like the artistic part will be definitely supervised by the artist and our teacher. We're just really excited. I was at Central when the Husky blew off the wall and everybody freaked out. They thought we got rid of him, and I wouldn't want anybody to have that experience. We are really trying to honor the tradition that has been in our school, honor the artist that did it. We've communicated with his family. They're surprised we haven't updated him yet. And there's some things in the works. The kids are talking about maybe including the skyline of downtown, including possibly the West Eagle on the shield, because, honoring that we are one community. So that's what we're up to. But I definitely wanted to involve you all in the process, get your feedback, and not have anybody surprised if they see him come off the wall that he is coming back. That's what I got.
Good to know. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. So you don't have any visuals to show us as prototypes yet?
We don't yet, but I definitely I wouldn't be able to have a chance to talk with you all again until May. And so I didn't want it to be a surprise. I've seen one prototype, but we're not ready to share that out yet till we start sharing it with students and staff. I don't want the first time that families hear about it is that I've shown it to outside of our school community. So our hope is to start that process on Tuesday.
Okay, excellent. So Sarah, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I want to know if he's going to be wearing pants.
Okay, this is the thing I wouldn't be saying in front of everybody unless you asked. He's going to have on a Trojan appropriate skirt added on, because if you've ever paid attention, his little tushy, see, you're making me blush. His little tushy is outlined, and there's a little camera behind his tushy, and the kids call that the poop camera. And so we just want to make him a little more appropriate and cover his derriere as well.
Ever since I think it was you or one of your colleagues presented a year or so ago about him not wearing pants, I can't drive by there and not look at his tushy now. So I've just been curious. Thank you.
Well, you only have a couple more weeks and it's gonna be gone.
Go out there after the meeting, Sarah, take a look. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments for Carrie? Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate you thinking of us. Oh, Karen, you have something.
How are you guys funding this? Is
Thank
this
you
just
for
part of
asking,
your
Karen.
regular?
Before Dr. Bishop left, there was a small seed amount that she gave us. And since then, our PTA has raised enough funds to cover the significant gap so that they're ready to write the check to the artist, and yeah, we're good to go. So we're not asking for funds from anywhere. It's all taken care of. PTA raised the funds 2 years ago, so we're all set. And then one last thing, we will, as soon as we make the final decision, we'll also have his image posted on our website. So, if you want to, Kathy, if you want me to, I could shoot you an email when he's up there, so you know that people can take a peek at him.
Sure. That'd be great. That'd be fun. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Something to look forward
for your time
this spring. Okay, so now you can get to bed because I'm sure you've got an early morning tomorrow.
Thank you. Good night.
And thank you, Bonnie, for allowing us to do the change the order of the day. Probably should have thought of that sooner. Okay, the next item on our agenda now is we got notification that the Anchorage Recreational Trails Plan, which isn't the name of the plan now, but they're redoing the trails plan. And they are looking for members to serve on a citizens advisory group or a technical working group. So the board chatted about it, and Kathleen said that she would be interested in putting her name in to serve on the citizens advisory group. And so thank you, Kathleen, new board treasurer. And so just wanted to kind of announce that, and I guess open it up if anybody else wanted to run against Kathleen, but we'd have to do it. We'd have to do an election. But I think Kathleen would be a really good choice. And I know Kathleen, you would communicate with the council, the board, the council, every step of the way as this plan gets redone, because we've got some important trails, certainly within our boundaries, and there's been a few proposed trails that we have vehemently opposed and have had to do that over time. So what this, as far as West Anchorage and Turnagain, we certainly want to see what this trails plan would include. But of course, everybody who's uses trails throughout Anchorage, we're interested in an update of that plan. So
sounds good, Kathy. I would be happy to do it and keep the council and the executive board up to speed on everything I learned. That's related to Turnagain.
And then when there's meetings, of course, the public can attend any of those working group sessions, even the technical advisory group. So, as we be updated on whenever they're being held, and anybody wants to sit in on them, that's good too. So does anybody have any opposition of Kathleen putting in her name? I don't have any idea how big they'll be or how they'll choose, but I certainly think, we have a good chance maybe of getting Kathleen on that citizens advisory group if we have an endorsement from our council. Anybody opposed to Kathleen being our submittal? Okay, well, thank you so much, Kathleen. We appreciate it. So yeah, let us know when they start meeting, and well, if you get picked. And oh, Steve, did you have a question? And you're muted.
No, I had no questions. I was just waving at her. So.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Good, Kathleen.
Okay, great. And then the last item on the old and new business is home initiative. And we certainly can't take the time to discuss this in detail at all. This is mostly just an update. And John, if you'd like to kind of just give us an update since our March meeting as far as what's happened with this
I will
proposal?
do that and try to get done within about 5 minutes. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here. If I can find what I'm looking for, here we go. Let's try that. Okay, can everybody see the screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So the home initiative started last year. 3 assembly sponsors. What they want to try to do is they want to try to simplify the Anchorage zoning code. And what this shows here is what they would be doing is they would be merging 15 existing 15 existing zones, residential zones, on the shown on the left side of the column here to a total of 5 residential zones. They would combine the R1, R1A, R2, 2A, R2D into a single 2-family residential. R2M would now become compact mixed residential. They would combine R3, R3A into compact mixed residential medium. R4, R4A would be urban residential high, and they would combine all the R5s through R10s into large lot residential development. And kind of among the implications of this is that for the most part, according to the staff report, the direction of change, it would result in smaller lot sizes required for these different types of development, allow larger buildings and potentially some different kinds of uses. And so we testified at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on March 18th and said, this is really going too fast. There's too much information that has been put out to the public. The sponsors are still giving presentations. You need to continue your public hearing till at least May. A number of other community councils testified. The majority of them are either against this or asked for a postponement and extension. And so the Planning Commission did do that. I have put in the chat one email that goes to this packet that was before planning and zoning, and there's a staff report in that packet. And anyone who's interested in this should read the staff report because the staff have considerable concerns about this and a difference of opinion whether this is a routine or a much more extensive rezone, including the need to amend the comprehensive plan 2020 plan and the 2040 land use plan. So this is now postponed until May 20th. As Kathy said, there's going to be a work session with planning and zoning on the 6th that we're going to attend. We are going to ask the sponsors, Anna Brawley, Daniel Voland, Meg Zolotel, to give us a presentation probably before the land use committee because it's going to be a long meeting to go through their detailed slideshow. And I'm going to add another link that Anna has provided in the chat when I'm done talking here that provides a link to their slideshow and other material they prepared, including their rebuttal to the staff report. But this is getting a lot of attention, a lot of concern. We still do not know all the implications. We want to see what the implications are of the smaller lots and what that means, the higher residential density, and particularly whether that's going to put cars on streets where there's not on-site parking and you have more street parking. What are the implications? So we have a number of questions, I guess, to add to that. So I guess I would say stay tuned. We'll try to put out more information on this as it evolves. It's currently on the assembly agenda to try to perhaps take action on in June at one of their meetings. But again, there are some differences in legal opinions and quite a bit of opposition to this. So I guess, Kathy, any sort of general questions?
Yeah, I mean, does anybody have any questions right now? But you know, this will take a lot more discussion on our part and other councils around town, and you know, we're just going to continue this process. But does anybody have any quick questions about the update per se? Because this is what's happened since we submitted comments, and then also John testified on behalf of the council on March 18th at the P&Z Commission
And
hearing.
I've added the second link to the chat, which hopefully both of these will work. One is for the staff packet with the staff report, and the other is for Anna's detailed slideshow, which I would try to look at if you want to see more information.
John, where is the Assembly's response to the staff report?
It should be in the link that Anna provided.
Okay.
And if you can't find it, let us know, because we also had her email it to us. And that's also worth reading. You can tell there's a little bit of testiness between the two parties and just looking at their response.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't see the staffing report one yet.
If you go further up, I
Oh,
actually said
sorry.
it prematurely. So it
Yeah.
shows up at 7:23, and that's there. And then Anna
Sorry.
came in at 8:53. So my apologies for a premature send.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had for Anna, and I'm not sure I don't know, John, did she answer or not? Since the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to have a work session with the three sponsors of the home initiative, and of course, planning staff will be there as well on May 6th. And John and I had talked about we need to have a land use committee meeting. Should it be before or after that work session? And, my gut tells me we want to have it after. They have to, but the Planning and Zoning Commission, they'll have to notice their continued public hearing for the 20th. And all of a sudden the time gets kind of crunchy, and when comments will be due again, and how much changes may or may not come out of this interim period now. So
She suggested doing it before, and I think the only reason to do so is if we schedule it afterwards, we have very little time to schedule it afterwards and then get some detailed comments in time to get it into the packet for the P and Z. But that's just a consideration we should talk about.
okay, yeah, we'll figure it out and decide what we think is best.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you again, John, so much for taking the lead on that. It's a big deal. So the last thing we have on the agenda, and I do see it's 5 till 9. So if maybe we could extend just for till 5 after 9, just so we don't have to talk really, really fast.
So moved.
Okay, thanks, John. Is there a second?
This is Pat. I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any objection? Thank you. Okay, so the last item on our agenda is Land Use Committee. We felt like the West Anchorage Snow Dump proposal project in Connors Bog, we didn't know quite where to put it, so we just decided Land Use Committee meeting. That also was a topic. I had a table there at the March 28th Anchorage Transportation Fair. I think it was the 28th, 26th, whatever day it was. And so John, and I certainly went to that table. And right now, and this project was on the roads and drainage bond, April 2nd's roads and drainage bond, which looks like it will pass. So it's continuing to get funding and move forward, just like the Fish Creek Trail connection. If money keeps getting approved, then that indicates that this project will move forward. We opposed this project initially, and for quite some time it violated 5 key planning documents that showed that all of that area it's high class A, high value wetlands that was intended to be natural open space in perpetuity. But we are where we are now. So at this point, we're not sure how much more public they're going to take. It says we still want to hear from you, but based on the last time they had any kind of public, it was on-site public input. They haven't had any kind of outreach to public for more dialogue and interaction with them since then. So I'm kind of feeling we're on the tail end of it in terms of really having any meaningful input at this point. But
So Kathy, I guess a couple of comments. I mean, this thing is going in, they've completed their permitting, they've completed their design, they're looking at construction in 2025. It does look like they have taken some comments into account. They are trying to minimize clearing vegetation. Particularly, they were going to put a new trail smack in the middle of a stand of trees that I see a lot of moose in for moose migration. They've taken that out and moved that away. And it looks like they have some pretty good natural filtration and sedimentation intercept that they're trying to do along the edges of this thing. One of their points in doing it here is it's going to rehydrate those bogs. It's still Class A wetlands, but I just don't think at this point in time they're not going to change their minds.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this particular item? Just because it's, yeah, we've already put in a lot of time and work and effort on this project. And they've moved forward and have taken a little bit of input. I still think it's strange for them to build a big berm around the whole thing and put a trail on top of the berm. Because I'm just not sure who wants to walk along the perimeter of a snow dump with interpretive signage. I don't know what the signage will have on it. It may be a thing of how much snow we get and how it melts, and I don't know what else they could say. But there will be interpretive signage. And when they met on site, Bob and Peggy Oth, and some of you may know them, long time active Turnagain, or excuse me, Spenard Community Council folks and neighbors. The three of us were standing there and we asked, so what will the chain link fence, because of course all this will be chain link fenced. And we said, so you know, is it just going to be the silver? And they said, well, yeah. And we said, well, can you paint it like a really dark green so it just isn't such an eyesore? And they said, sure, we can do that. So I hope somebody wrote that down. So that was one thing that maybe we did do to help improve it when it's constructed. If not, we'll have to go buy spray. We'll have to use our money from our savings account and go buy spray paint and make it so.
Just for a quick clarification, is the filtration being provided by the what is probably going to be expensive and sinking berm around the edge of the snow dome?
Well, I think there's two questions there. They are looking at providing some areas where they're talking about green natural filtration, where they're going to try to keep the sediment out and allow the water to sort of percolate into the wetlands. The design of the berm and what that berm will do in terms of sinking into the wetlands is a different question. I don't know the answer to that. One hopes that their engineers would know enough to design it properly.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I asked them about that, and they are going to be putting an impermeable membrane and underneath the berm such that it does not interact per se with the native soil underneath it. So there'll be separation, so it takes away the or it spreads the load, so it doesn't sink.
No, that's a good question and good to know. Good answer.
Yeah, I asked that question because I'm worried about frost heaving and subsidence as well.
Okay, does anybody else have any thoughts or comments on this? If not,
I have a
think
comment.
does anybody, oh, whoop, Karen, go ahead. Oh, and
Go ahead,
somebody else.
Steve. Steve was
yeah,
first.
I had a comment that I was kind of surprised. I went to that the MOA maintenance building, the station there, which is right next to the existing snow dump. And I talked to the person who runs that, Eric Hodgkins, and he really didn't seem to know anything about this. I asked him about what are they going to do to, you know, with the new site, and what do you think about that? And he seemed like completely confused by it. He didn't seem like he knew anything about it. So I'm kind of surprised. So, you know, looking at this map, it looks like it's that Turnagain Street. I mean, North Star is just going to go right around that maintenance building, and right to that new dump site. So I don't know. It's just I thought that was really a strange thing to see. Maybe they just need a little more input, I think, from their employees or the authority of that. That's all I have.
Odd. That is odd. So Karen, did you have something else?
Yeah, were we trying to see if Turnagain Community Council had the interest in sending one more letter, or were we just going to say because it's so far along in the process that
Yeah, I'm not sure that one more letter would accomplish much of anything. I think if anything, it was more of an update, but you know, I kind of leave that up to Kathy for.
Well, the handout, because I grabbed I grabbed paper, is we want to hear from you, exclamation point. But it doesn't really say what they'd want to hear. And because the final site selection was completed in February of 2021. And they put on their timeline, they've got design has already started and will continue through most of this year. And then bids and awards will go out at the beginning of 2025 and construction the rest of 2025 and into 2026. So that's, and yet they say they want to hear from us. So with all the other things that we have to kind of weigh in on, to me, this would be low priority unless we feel like they said we want to hear. So if we have some legitimate things that we just want to go ahead and provide to them at this point, if somebody wants to draft something based on our discussion, I'm sure they'd open the email. I don't know what would happen after that. So maybe Karen, you can think about that and see if you want to put any kind of thoughts together, final thoughts from our council based on our discussion and input that we've put in the past.
Just to let you know, you're at 9:06.
Okay, so if there is nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Dan.
I
Could I have a
second.
second? Oh, who was second?
Steve.
Steve, thank you. Okay, any objection to getting this shut down? Okay, if not, our meeting is closed for the evening. Thank you so much, everybody,
Yeah,
for
thank you all.
being and participating.
Yeah.
And again,
Thank you,
congrats
everyone.
to Chris and Kathleen. Thank you so much for being part of our executive board now.
Happy to have you.
Yay!
Indeed.
Good to be
Right.
back. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good night, all.
congratulations. Have a good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Recording over.